Welcome back to Mostly Growth, the #1 podcast in product monetization. And Ben, you made it. We didn't think you'd be here.
I was stranded at a craps table at midnight, yes, but I made it. I got back.
That sounds like hell. And why were you stranded again?
So midnight at the craps table, I get a push notification that the airline that I just flew in the day before, Spirit Airlines, no longer exists. And I should, quote, not show up to the airport because there will be no flight for me to return back home.
Love how straightforward it is. We don't exist anymore. Whatever you want to do is on you. But we would recommend you just don't expect to travel anywhere.
Yeah.
But did it come through the Spirit Airlines app?
Yes.
Did they say they were giving you a refund? Like, what other information?
Yeah, they said so. I sent you guys over the screenshot, and it's still showing up if you open.
Wait, let me read it to people.
Yeah,
This is
read it.
hilarious. I can't believe this just popped up. We regret to inform you that all Spirit flights have been canceled effective immediately. Guests with previously confirmed Spirit tickets should not go to the airport. We are not able to help rebook your flight on another airline. We will automatically issue refunds for any flights purchased through Spirit with a credit card to the original form of payment. For more information about the wind down process, please visit spiritrestructuring.com. Dude, this sounds like a made up message.
So what do you think? Like, because I booked it on an itinerary where it was 2 flights. I took one of the flights. So like, am I getting half a refund? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to approach that.
Pricing question for Kyle. Is each leg dynamically priced and then aggregated?
From what I've seen, a lot of airlines have moved forward with like leg by leg pricing. And so like because you're going to have a leg that's probably more expensive than the other leg. Since this is a shuttle flight, it might just be the same, but I can see them maybe looking at what's the cheapest thing to give you, the per leg or the half.
Well, I should have taken it as a bad omen at the craps table when I then donated all my money to the new Hard Rock hotel that they're building.
Dude, you were part of history. You were part of shutdown history. It's like you were there for, I mean, it's not Enron. There's no fraud, but like, what a weird business model that technically when you shut down, you'll always strand people.
There were other budget airlines that were offering discounts to people who had been canceled. It's like we could have gotten a $40 flight back home at 6 a.m. or something like that from Frontier Airlines.
Always fun to capitalize on your competitor's downfall.
Ever the capitalist, Kyle.
Reminds me of when those like software companies go out of business and it's like, we're here to welcome you. Get that smirk off your face.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyer and CFO CJ Gustafson break down how modern companies make money, covering pricing, monetization, and benchmarks in ways that make you better at your job. Tactics and playbooks for finance, product, and sales operators looking to be the CEO of their role. This is Mostly Growth.
So, all right. So Spirit had some of the most hated pricing in all of airlines. Cheap, but also hated. They might be one of the few companies that has pricing people hate more than software pricing.
I interviewed their old CFO on their On the Numbers podcast, Scott Haralson, and he was a hit. That guy just told it like it was. And I have to empathize with them. I think people say the restaurant industry is the worst industry to be in. It's by far the airline industry. None of those companies make money.
I mean, wait, so you interview the CFO. The CFO's #1 job is to not run out of money, right?
Yeah, well, he left. He's at Hertz now, which is another beloved transportation company in the United States. So,
all right, well, we're going to go from airlines to AI pricing. And the key story I wanted to cover today is, I thought at this point AI pricing would be somewhat settled, but the rate of pricing changes is only increasing. There's examples that are kind of fresh in the papers from Microsoft, GitHub, ServiceNow, Salesforce, SAP, and more. Figured we could talk through these together.
You dropped some big names there, so I'm excited. I thought we were at first going to be talking about these smaller companies that are just inventing this product no one's seen before and also some kabuki pricing model. But I mean, you got me with the names, man. You got me with the headline.
We talked about the empire of SaaS strikes back, and we're seeing it play out in real time.
Kyle, up first, let's talk about Salesforce.
All right, well, Salesforce, the big news here is Salesforce goes headless. They're making their MCP and API available to everyone. No seat required to use Salesforce. kind of saying that they're willing in some ways to kill their per seat business model.
I have a confession to make, but you have to promise not to make fun of me.
I won't tell anyone outside of this podcast.
What does headless mean? Because I've heard it multiple times and I just nod my head every single time.
Oh my God, I'm going to look so dumb trying to explain it. Here's my impression of headless. Like you've got the back end of software and then you've got the front end, like the user experience. And I think headless just means the back end can work in your own UI or other UIs. So you could use the Salesforce CRM, but like with Claude as your user interface.
Oh, I mean, I've heard it in the context of websites, like website designing. And I've also heard it in the context of even the new AI ERPs. Like it's a headless ERP, which I think essentially means, just from what you explained, that you're taking this financial data, but you're giving it to people in a different layout that feels more native to whatever application they're working in.
Exactly. So a lot of AI-based or API-based products would be headless products, especially if it's like integrated in another tool that's your system of record. Then you don't necessarily need to log in to the product you bought. You can just access it via API.
Well, another stupid question. Isn't Salesforce like the most integrated API'd in product of all time even before this?
Well, they are. I mean, and they have a massive platform business, right? So they've become accustomed to recognizing people don't necessarily want to just use the Salesforce UI to access what they're doing. And I think that their bet is probably that the UI might actually move somewhat to Slack as more of a day-to-day operating system. And so in some ways, this kind of headless move, they want to capitalize it. They want to be early. They definitely don't want to like lose out to AI native companies. And there's maybe some benefits to be had from their positioning.
If you back up a second, what do you mean no seat required to use Salesforce? Because when I think of seat-based models, Salesforce, I think of first.
Right. And their core pricing is still going to be seat based. And so they still clearly have a lot of seat based revenue. We should say that. But I think that my understanding with their model is they're probably going to find ways to monetize when you ping their API to access it in other platforms. And so they're going to have seats as a bucket of revenue. They probably are going to bundle some sort of usage in with those seats, and then they're going to have usage based revenue. But I think the kind of the big deal is you used to need to pay for not just your sales team to access Salesforce. So your sales team was going to be logging in regularly, like they were a core user for Salesforce. But then if the finance team wanted to access the reports in Salesforce, they had to get their own seat licenses, or the marketing team or the product team. I think now what it's doing is making it easier for you to only buy seats for the core users and probably not buy seats for all the other adjacent people.
Well, that's what I was getting at, because as a CFO, I looked at it, if it was a single year deal, you had this competitive period where you would go head to head to a Salesforce, and there were multiple types of licenses that you're trying to discount down. So say the license for the sales team and marketing team was 120. I'm like, can I get that down to $100 or $110? But then there was this other license that was for the people like me in finance. I still needed to be able to look at stuff. Maybe that one was 80, and I want to try to get that one down too. But it wasn't like one price fits all for these seats. So they must have done the math that said, we still want to have all this revenue from the sales high priced license seats, but we can actually make more off of people like CJ who are using this headless infrastructure to query the data on a per whatever it is, API or toll basis.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the math works out for them. My guess is they looked at the potential for consumption revenue from different use cases, and they must have been like, there's some real upside here. Like if I'm Salesforce, I'm gonna want to make sure that the power users of their headless version are still paying at least like a similar price per seat as what someone would have paid before. So that'll be really interesting. Is like, yes, the headline is it's much more accessible, but what they're not going to talk about is how much extra they're going to be charging you for the consumption.
Yeah, because every year, at least twice per year, I would export whoever had a Salesforce license, and I would look at how many times they logged in, and I would kill off everybody who's under a certain threshold. What this does is it lowers the barrier where you don't have to buy them that license anymore. You're not killing them off. In fact, anyone can access it, and they just get hit based on how much information they pull. So I think I understand where the upside is in that.
I think that's the idea, but I suspect the core sales folks that are logging opportunities, they need to integrate their email and, call data and all of that. Like, pretty sure those folks are still paying for seats, and that's the core of Salesforce's business model. Is just saying, hey, instead of like the seats being the primary store of value, we have two stores of value. We have seats and we have consumption.
Got it. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
When I looked to set up my first CRM at Growth Unhinged, I knew I wanted something that was actually AI first. The world has evolved. Most CRMs are still stuck in the 90s. I found Lightfield, the CRM that remembers everything and does the work for you. It joins all my sales calls, reads my emails, and has the full context on every account. At this point, Lightfield knows my deals better than I do. I haven't had to set up a single CRM dashboard. Instead, I simply ask Lightfield questions like, which deals in my pipeline are most likely to close, or who do I need to follow up with today? It even automatically prepares me for meetings with a personalized daily briefing, and setup was quick and surprisingly painless. Lightfield is my sales coach, RevOps analyst, therapist, EA, all in one. See Lightfield for yourself with a 14-day free trial. Connecting data from your inbox takes just 5 minutes, and you can migrate in under an hour. Go to lightfield.app, that's lightfield.app, and use code mostlygrowth to get 3 months free. When I went all in on my newsletter, Growth Unhinged, last year, I quickly decided it was time to make the switch to beehiiv. I chose beehiiv because they're serious about powering the internet's best newsletters. beehiiv's all-in-one platform brings together newsletters, websites, and every tool you need to grow and earn. And they keep making it better. You can now launch, host, and monetize your podcast entirely on beehiiv. You can host webinars on beehiiv, and you can access beehiiv through the new MCP. I just use beehiiv's MCP in Claude Cowork to audit my site, prioritize SEO fixes, and analyze subscriber trends. It's my newest obsession. If you care about owning your audience, beehiiv is a no-brainer. Try beehiiv for free by going to beehiiv.com. That's beehiiv.com. Use Kyle30 for 30% off your first 3 months.
Ali and the team at Tabs are building something that directly addresses one of the biggest headaches I see finance teams deal with today. Pulling data from your ERP, your CRM, your FP&A tools, and your usage systems and actually making it all work together. If you're running usage-based pricing or complex contracts, you already know how this usually plays out. Contracts live in one system, usage data lives somewhere else, billing happens in another tool. RevRec gets layered on top at month end, and finance ends up just reconciling everything by hand to close the books. This is exactly the problem Tabs was built to solve. Tabs is an AI-native revenue platform built for controllers and CFOs. It brings together data from your ERP, CRM, and real product usage into a single system of record. From there, it automates billing, collections, and revenue recognition without finance having to duct tape workflows together every month. If usage-based revenue is core to your business, this is the future of how billing and RevRec get done. Go check them out at tabs.com/run. That's tabs.com/run. Do you want to talk about Microsoft next, or did you have anything else on our friends at Salesforce?
Let's talk about Microsoft. And so their move is actually oddly similar to Salesforce. So Microsoft recently had an earnings call, and Satya Nadella, their CEO, had some pretty interesting quotes in the earnings call. One of the things he said was that every per user business will become a per user and usage business. So that's kind of like what Salesforce is saying with their headless MCP announcement.
You didn't put enough emphasis on the and. It's a per user and usage business, Kyle.
Right. So it's like the per user in his mind is not going away. It's just that there's more of it's a hybrid model with multiple revenue streams. So he did go on to say the seat-based pricing is just entitlement to some consumption. There are some base usage rights that get bundled in or packaged into seats. And so his kind of notion is like the seat's basically just saying, hey, you're used to buying per seat. You're going to get a certain amount of usage included in that seat, and then you can pay more for additional usage. The value isn't necessarily in the seat, it's in the consumption, but we're still going to keep a seat fee because you're really used to paying for it, and that gives them a floor on how much you're going to spend.
I read it as you have to buy the seat, but you kind of get jack shit for it. And if you want all the other cool stuff, we're going to hit you with the usage-based fee.
I mean, they're bundling in some usage, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how generous they're going to be with the with that included usage.
It's just your ticket to get into the show, Kyle. After that, you got to pay for all the beers. You may not even be able to get to hear the main band perform. You got to pay extra for that.
Well, I mean, access to the show, get to listen to the show. It's not like they're saying, hey, you can pay for a ticket to the show and then you pay per song you listen to while you're there. But a couple of interesting things with this announcement. So they moved GitHub Copilot to a usage-based model effective June 1st. So this is one of their ways to say, hey, they're being aggressive about the shift. Satya also said 60% of their Dynamics 365 customer service customers are already buying usage-based credits, and that Copilot credit consumption was up nearly 2x quarter on quarter. So they're really saying not only is this shift happening, they're trying to make it clear that they're already, driving this transformation. Like this isn't new. They're going to see continued growth as usage increases.
All right, quick quiz here. What do you think GitHub makes in revenue per year, that business unit?
Ooh, GitHub. I don't know, a couple billion? 2 billion?
Did you look that up? Yeah, it's $2 billion.
I didn't. I just know Cursor's a couple billion, so I figured
Yeah.
it was probably similar.
All right, what about GitLab, standalone publicly traded company?
Probably about the same, right?
Half. They're just under 1 billion. So I always have to remind myself how big GitHub is inside of Microsoft.
Yeah, that's pretty massive at this point. What did Microsoft pay for them?
They paid $7 billion for them back in 2018, I think. Yeah.
All right, so they've recouped their investment there, especially on continued growth. This trend of saying, hey, the seat is now basically a license to AI consumption. This trend is really increasing. So I have been surveying over 200 companies for my upcoming State of B2B Monetization report. And interestingly, 29% now say they have some form of AI credits or tokens, which, this is up really substantially over the last year. We've talked about it, with companies like Figma, a bunch of others launching AI credits in the last year. So 29% now have credits. But the interesting thing for me was that 34% said that they plan to introduce AI credits within the next 6 to 12 months. So this trend, we're actually still in the early innings relative to where things are going.
I think we got to make a public service announcement here, Kyle. This is like your regular reminder of what a credit. WTF is a credit, Kyle.
If you can explain that to me, I would love that.
People just say, oh, are you moving to credits? It's like, okay, that's like a very nebulous bucket that can change from company to company. But we throw around this term as if it's like, yes, we are also on a credit system. But it's like a unit of measure. Like a meter is not a meter is not a meter. A credit is a proxy for another thing underneath. It's just a cleaner way to charge people.
Yeah, exactly. A credit is a currency system. So it just tells you like someone's on the US dollar or they're on the euro, right? Not like what you're actually paying for. But when I say credit, what this usually looks like is there's two versions of it. One is a cost-based model that you're kind of taking the AI tokens that you're paying for, like putting a margin on top of it and just passing through the costs. The other model is more action or like output oriented, where it's credit based, but a credit is something that like you get real value for doing. So like a resolution might be of a customer support request could be a credit. And so you actually have both of those models existing side by side. And then some companies kind of have this bastardized hybrid where it's not really that clear if they're cost based or value based. But when I think of this trend and why I think it's important to call out, despite credits meaning different things for so many different companies. It's like, this is all so new. SaaS companies used to never have a concept of a credit as a currency or any sort of usage limits that were bundled into their seats. And so now we have these models that have a seat-based subscription component to their business model and this kind of unknown usage-based component that could be quite variable and hard to forecast.
Can I put my tinfoil hat on for a second, Kyle?
Go for it.
I think that this credit system makes a lot more sense based on the unknown costs of the large language models, and large costs, by the way. So they're both not that stable, not as predictable as many companies would hope, and also changing. I think that moving to a credit model also allows these companies to change what the underlying value of what a credit will get you without stirring up too much change in how they charge people. So in other words, you can say we're still in a credit system, but it's like, oh yeah, what a credit used to mean, it's a little bit less or a little bit more from before. So it gives them the wiggle room to change stuff under the surface. Under the surface, it's kind of like how you say we're all in the US dollar. It's like, well, the exchange rate changes.
Totally. I mean, when Claude introduces Mythos, we don't really know how much that's going to cost, right? We know it's supposed to be crazy advanced, it can do all this stuff, it's going to break every company. If you have a credit model, you can just say a Mythos credit is twice the cost of a regular credit. And so it could just be folded into that credit system. I think it's very vendor friendly, but credits are not customer friendly because the customer has to do all of the work. If you're the CFO, you have to teach your team when to use Mythos versus Sonnet versus Opus, and like doing that math kind of constantly on the exchange rate. Like the work is on the customer to get the ROI. And I think that can sometimes be a very frustrating position to be in.
And I think there are going to be all these companies springing up. You could call it a cottage industry of sorts that help companies translate what credits mean and optimize their overall spend, similar to cloud spend, but for large language model spend. And it'll be that layer that translates this is basically how much you're leaving on the table or overpaying for these credits.
Well, there really needs to be a lot more of that, especially as a lot of the same capabilities get transferred across apps. So let's say you can design a vibe coded app. You can now do that in Figma, but you can do that in Claude these days. You can do that in Lovable. You can do that everywhere else. So where do you already have credits that you haven't spent that you should go first? What has the most attractive sort of credit consumption for what you're trying to build? So like maybe there's even an abstraction layer where like I'm trying to vibe code this thing and it can look at your systems and say, okay, you could actually do this in Figma, but you should do your next one in Lovable.
Yeah, underneath the surface. Because remember, I have a day job. I don't have enough time to try to translate like, oh, I need to run this BVA analysis. Do I want to run it using OpenAI or Anthropic? Well, also, how many credits do I have left for each of those in a month? I don't know. I would love for there to be that translation layer.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the AI companies like Anthropic are increasingly decoupling consumption from the seat. And they're pretty much just charging at API rates for consumption. But some of these SaaS companies are actually quite generous at bundling in consumption because they want to show AI usage and they want to have an AI story to the street. And so I suspect for a lot of companies, you could actually probably have a better ROI to access the same AI models through your SaaS than by AI companies directly.
It reminds me of that person who was logging on to Chipotle's website and asking it to refactor its code just because they knew that it could use the free credits from OpenAI in the background.
It's an interesting time. Well, let's share some more examples. One that I wanted to flag to you was ServiceNow. So they had an earnings call too, and their CFO said 50% of new revenue is non-seat based.
Okay, what does non-seat based mean? I feel like it's just like all the other stuff over here.
I don't think they made that super clear.
Could be professional services, Kyle.
With the reaction I think they wanted people to take away is that it was on consumption and AI consumption. Although as a company that is involved in automation, a lot of automation workflows were already based on like API calls or tasks or other metrics. And so some of that communication was marketing oriented, but I think the message is like, we're not a seat-based company either.
Yeah, it feels like a dirty word if you say you're a SaaS seat-based company now. Everyone's trying to get that ick off them.
Yeah, it is the ick. It is actually do you have any icks where it's like if someone starts doing this, you're like, I'm out?
People eating on calls.
Oh yeah.
I'm having a Zoom meeting with you and you start eating your lunch. Like it really bugs me. Ben, put that oatmeal down. Do you?
Oh man. Another one for me is when you are meeting in person and someone is like uncomfortably close to you. Like, why are you 6 inches from my face? I absolutely hate that.
Is that the same thing as a close talker? Or you mean like just at the table? They're very
Yeah, the
close
close
to
talker. Like if you can feel their spit on your face from them talking, I'm like, I am done with this conversation.
And back to SAP.
So SAP, which is not known for like forward-thinking, advanced pricing models, They recently announced that they are moving away from their traditional per user and subscription based pricing model. Apparently, in an interview with Bloomberg, their CEO said they're going to begin charging based on AI consumption. They're also going to be deploying forward deployed engineering teams to help build AI apps directly with customers. They're a little bit late to the game on this, but fascinating to see even SAP, which is a very slow moving company, put a stake in the ground about heading in this direction.
Dude, I was today years old when I found out there's a website called ERP Today.
I would have thought that was your homepage.
Yeah, I don't even have Google or ChatGPT. It just opens the ERP Today every time I log in.
SAP also has this kind of concept of a credit system. They call them SAP's AI units pricing framework. They're just not calling them credits or token, they're AI units.
And they call it out. The transition introduces new challenges for customers, particularly around predictability and cost control.
Yeah, no shit. Oh man, that is what we're all gonna face. But there's some interesting trends too. So let's get into the next one. Adobe. So they're actually not just all on this credit or token model. They announced that they are going to adopt an outcome-based pricing model for Adobe CX Enterprise. Their positioning seems to be they are only going to be charging for AI agents when they work.
And is this for the Adobe Creative Suite? Is that mainly what it's aimed at?
So this is not the Creative Suite. It is their Customer Experience Suite specifically.
Okay. Well, then that makes sense if it's comparable to a Zendesk or Intercom, right? Because I have more of a, I don't know. I get confused by outcome-based pricing when it's design-oriented.
Totally. It's customer experience. I think that, outcome-based pricing has become much more the norm. We talked about HubSpot recently moving to a per resolution pricing model, undercutting Intercom's Fin product by half. And so this is a model that's a little bit more common now in customer support. But in Adobe's case, the reporting I've seen on it seems to be that they're looking at a range of types of business outcomes. So it's not just resolving a customer support interaction, but there might be things like completing an ad campaign or a conversion uplift, like other kinds of events that are a little bit more marketing oriented. So it is like, I think that it is a step forward in kind of broadening this outcome based pricing beyond customer support. But I'm not a user of Adobe CX Enterprise, so I can't speak to all the specifics about what they're charging for.
I think it's cool because now it's broadening, like you said, the outcome scenarios to stuff that's in the sales and marketing department. Whereas before, it was kind of sequestered in my mind just to customer support.
Exactly. We are seeing it slowly expand. And it reminds me so when HubSpot made the announcement about undercutting Intercom's pricing, they also announced pricing for their Breeze agent, which is around lead prospecting. And I think it's charging $1 per recommended lead. So starting to see that outcome-based pricing in a marketing and sales context, which does make a lot of sense. Like if you're a marketer, you already pay or like used to a certain price per lead for your advertising. And so paying for that for technology product, there's some like a familiarity with that kind of approach.
That was going to be my analog. I mean, every marketer already is doing a price per lead. Like if you're plowing money into Meta, what are you looking at every day? Oh, it cost me $9 for that lead. That is essentially outcome-based pricing. It's just kind of the other way around.
Exactly. So you're used to like, you want transparency on the outcomes. You want to be able to make sure the outcomes actually like flow through to your business. It's not just saying like we're paying per click, but it's like those clicks translate into pipeline or deals. You want to be able to set a budget so that you don't go over a certain amount. But like if you have those criteria in place, a lot of people are pretty comfortable on this kind of flexible outcome-based model. And I'd say like that's honestly probably part of why Meta and Google have been able to build so successful businesses is that they really changed ad pricing from like you pay for an ad slot in a newspaper or like pay for a billboard and hope someone sees it to you're only spending money if it's working for your business.
Next one, you have Canva on this list. I did not expect that.
I do have Canva on the list. So what is interesting with Canva is that they're trying to bring AI to, I think, often a much more small business or solopreneur business environment where people might not want to pay on credits or like this complex AI pricing kind of gets challenging. And so one thing that I noticed Canva launched was what they call an AI pass. And so it's this idea that you can add the AI pass to a Canva Pro or business plan, and you get 40x more AI power than Canva Pro and 20x more than Canva Business. And it's a monthly add on. So it's kind of positioned as like, I guess, a Claude Max or something, but like getting that within your Canva account.
I agree. Like, if it's me using this for my small business, I'm probably not going to want to pay outcome-based pricing. I just want to pay a higher subscription tier. And within that, just let me know when I hit it. But if you're trying to tell me it's this much for this action, like that's way too much math, I think, for someone who's running a small business or working for themselves.
Yeah, you don't really want to deal with all the credit math. I think if you're a Canva, you're probably doing some math and say, hey, like for if a user hits the max amount of usage, you maybe lose a little bit of money or maybe you break even on them. But a lot of people will add the AI pass. They want the extra power when they need it, but they're not using it all the time. And so it's like peace of mind, there's predictability, and then the portfolio of customers will sort of net out positive from a margin perspective.
And I think it's very smart of them to notice that a lot of their power users are using it in sprints that are project based. So you would add this pass for the week that you're using and get charged for that month, but not all 12 months are you going to be like getting ready for a big dinner where you have to do the place cards or invites or something. You're going to be oscillating back and forth between high work periods where you may need it, and maybe you can just downgrade in others to the basic subscription.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out for them. It's trying to, I think, add a little bit more predictability and control to AI pricing, but it's also, it's got some downsides associated with it. I mean, it's not super flexible. People could just upgrade 1 month at a time, then downgrade, so might have high churn. And they still got to convince people that Canva is the destination to, get AI as opposed to all these other products out there.
Anyone else make this list?
So I did want to cover one more that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and it's Anthropic. And so the big thing that they've been pushing on right now is that they've lowered their enterprise seat prices. So they used to have multiple seat models that you could buy as the enterprise. They've lowered that down to, I believe it's $20 across the board, while shifting much more aggressively to usage-based pricing. And essentially what this means is they're not subsidizing usage to the extent that they did before. They're saying we've got a seat license, and then you can pay the API rates for the consumption, and it'll be pooled consumption across the users in your account. I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One is it's a shift to making them IPO ready. They're doing less subsidization of AI. They are shifting towards higher margins, a path towards profitability, which I think they'll want to show the street. It's acting now to move these legacy customers off of the model, and they're doing it at a time when everyone loves the Anthropic models. It's like if there's a time you can kind of rock the boat with customers, it's when you've got a competitive advantage in the market with your product.
I'm glad we got to this point because we've been talking about the overall pricing architecture of these companies, but we haven't teased out what this means for investors and why it's attractive to them. So in your opinion, Kyle, let me just try to play it back here. There's more of an upside and a better gross margin opportunity for them to shift to this model now. And it's better to do it when you're in everybody's good graces and they're increasing usage than later.
Exactly. It kind of reminds me of like back in the day, you can get an Uber for like no money, right? Or an Uber pool. I remember there being times when like an Uber pool was like $3 and there would be no one carpooling with me.
You said $2.50.
It's like it's signaling the era of like VC subsidies are starting to go away. They're building a real business. This is a sticky product. Customers have set up their Claude accounts. They've got skills. They've got like all the files. So Claude knows a lot about their business. They've got MCP set up. Like Claude is sticky. And so they need to subsidize Claude less, and they're going to be charging you more as you're a power user. And I think that's a much better business model for them. And now is a good time to do it. And I think that the pressure is on OpenAI to build a product that has as much stickiness or find a motion to be able to win back these Claude users.
I wonder if there are any stories, there have to be, of like couples that met in an Uber pool and got married.
Oh, there are. I know a couple. They met in San Francisco in an Uber pool. They live in Boston now, and they got on an Uber ad campaign. This was like a few
Seriously?
years ago. Seriously. It happens. It can happen. But this model for Anthropic, I think it's so interesting because investors used to love predictable subscription SaaS revenue, right? Like even if you were subsidizing usage, they probably would prefer the predictable pricing and, but very predictable ARR that comes with seat-based revenue. Now investors are saying, hey, if you're not in the token path, if you don't have a usage-based path to revenue, like they almost look at these businesses like a dinosaur. And so in that state of monetization survey, I asked companies which pricing model your investors would prefer you to have, which this first time I've ever asked that. And companies were kind of split. 9% said flat fee or subscription pricing. Only 4% said seat-based pricing. So very few investors wanted them to have anything that resembled traditional SaaS pricing. A little over 20% said usage-based pricing. 25% actually said outcome-based pricing, which was interesting. And about a third said hybrid pricing, which combines subscription and usage or outcome-based. Taken together, more than 80% said that their investors wanted them to have some usage-oriented pricing that was inherently less predictable, but had more upside to it.
What would have to change in the macro situation for that not to be true, for the sentiment to swing?
Oh, as soon as there's a downturn in the economy, things will change very fast.
Dude, we've seen this movie before.
Investors loved usage-based pricing in 2021 as well, and then hated it in like 2022 into 2023 because usage-based companies saw the cloud spend optimizations. They got hit by it first. I think what's happening is like there's real costs with AI. And so usage-based companies, have higher margin floor. Like there's less risk of totally unprofitable customers. I think there's a signaling aspect of if you are pricing based on consumption, you're signaling to the market that there's real AI adoption within your customer base, kind of have to. And then I think investors just like the net retention dynamics associated with charging on a metric that's growing. So like if you're a cell phone company in the 90s, or no, let's say 2000s, and you had charged based on minutes of talk, and now all of a sudden the iPhone's coming out and like data usage is about to expand, I would much rather have my pricing tied to gigabytes of data usage rather than minutes of talk. And so investors are really going to encourage you to price based on the thing that they see growing in the market.
Yeah. It's a great report, Kyle.
Well, it drops in a week. Everyone needs to stay tuned.
More to come.
All right, next up, hopefully you're not a Spirit Airlines, but we got some business blunders.
All right. So there was a fundraiser for my 4-year-old daughter's daycare. I guess they're building a new playground or something. And so they get all the parents together. They call it museum night, and it's like a silent auction. You can go and bid on stuff. And I'm like, what's the dress code for this thing? And so my wife, she's never like taken the dress code thing seriously. I have all these like vivid memories in my life of like showing up to a black tie event and I'm the only one in a blue suit, or not wearing like a collared shirt to a dinner where everyone else like was dressed up. And so I asked her what it was. She's like, oh, I think you just like have to wear like something nice. Like you don't, and I'm like, nice. It's not really like a category of dress here, but okay.
Nice in tech really just means a t-shirt that's clean.
Yeah, like, it doesn't have barbecue stains on it. And so I don't want to wear a sport jacket. Like I work from home. Like this polo is the dressiest I get really. And so I wear like this, call it like a fancy hoodie of sorts. It's, it's this nice purple mauve. I can't pronounce the word.
Mauve.
It was like basically like a purple sweater. It was nice with a button up underneath it and dark jeans. And I'm like, I really hope I don't show up and everybody's wearing a jacket. I show up, room with 200 people. I'm the only person not wearing a sport jacket.
Well, you were in Connecticut.
I know.
I have a couple of speaking gigs coming up in May, and I was like debating. I really hate that whole like button down, tucked into jeans, like with a blazer whole outfit. I mean, that's like, I've worn that outfit a lot of times. It gives me like VP of sales vibes. I don't need that in my life right now, but I want to look nice because I'm like going to go to an event and there's people there and I can't just be someone that's a hermit. So I bought a chore coat on Quince. That's going to be my go-to. We'll see how it goes. It's $60 on Quince.
Chore coat? What does that mean? Like you like clean up the yard in it?
You could, or you could go to an event. I mean, the idea is like, it is kind of like a blazer, but it's like stretchy fabric.
Oh,
It's kind of
yeah.
cottony. It's like not super heavy. You can wear it under a t-shirt or whatever you want, but it's like makes you clean up a little bit nicer.
I just feel like for some of these social events, if we don't get dressed up like that for work anymore, like I feel like I shouldn't have to wear a blazer to something, especially for like to raise money for toddlers.
I mean, you can wear whatever you want.
Thanks.
I'll support you, CJ. Always.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Additional production by Steve Sarasoli. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe and give us 5 stars. It'd only take like 2 seconds and our algorithm overlords love it. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.